Let's talk a little bit about Chapter 14, Tap 2. Here we illustrate one of the basic problems about public goods provision, and that is even when we have a public good that provides benefits in excess of its costs, and we know the right quantity of the public good, it can still be tricky getting support for the spending necessary to acquire that public good, to offer that public good. And this occurs when there's differences among citizens' willingness to pay and then democracy. So let's just dive in here with that preview. So if they have to split the cost evenly, say on a head tax system, a poll tax system, would the guard be hired? And here the answer is no, right? If they split the 220 fee evenly, they each pay 110, and Phil's value is only 100, and so he wouldn't vote to pay 110 in this rational view to get something that's worth 100 to him. And now we know in the real world people will sometimes just say, go along with paying a little extra just to keep the peace and know that the next time around, the other person will pay a little extra and it all works out in the end. But in the strictly rational model, where we only support measures that bring us direct benefits that exceed our direct costs, then no. And no, and 110 cost share is greater than Phil's valuation. All right, what proportional tax would be necessary to support the hiring of this guard? And this is just the share of each person's income that would be necessary. And we can find that fairly directly just by calculating what the charge of the guard is as a proportion first, and I'll express it as a percentage. What proportion that cost of the guard is to citizens' income. We take that ratio, we plug it into our calculator, and we get 0.008148. It's going to be important to carry the decimals out a few places because of we're going to be applying that proportional tax to thousands of dollars worth. So let's carry it out to at least, I don't know what's that, 100,000, something like that. Anyway, we multiply that. It's a 0.81% tax, and we multiply this number by each person's income to find each person's payment. So Phil would pay $16.30, and Lisa would pay, she pays, and this is just plugging it into my calculator, she pays $203.70. And then would the guard get hired? Yes, guard gets hired. Notice that 1630 is less than Phil's valuation of $100 for the guard, and 203.70 is less than, is less than Lisa's valuation. Costs are less than the value, so the guard gets hired. Let me go to a new page for this next part. What about a system, a payment system where the net benefit of each is equalized? So they each get the same amount of surplus from hiring the guard. And we got to do just a little bit of algebra here. Let X be Phil's payment, Y be Lisa's payment. I know, does that pink bother you? It sort of bothers me. Let's go with white, black. White wouldn't work too well. All right, so the math of these words means that Phil's surplus, his valuation minus his costs, net benefit, I think I called it. Either way. Lisa's she values it at 300. She's going to pay whatever y is. Well, that's one equation and two unknowns. There's an infinite combination of x's and y's that satisfy that. We need something else, and lo and behold, we have something else. We also know that x plus y is going to equal 220 exactly. So now we have a linear system, two equations, two unknowns, and we can solve this in several different ways. The easiest way is to transform this second, well, it's maybe not the easiest, but one easy way is to transform this second one into a form y is equal to 220 minus x. And then we can plug this number in for this y, this equality in for y, and then we have one equation, one unknown we can solve directly. So let's do that. 100 minus x is equal to 300 minus 220 plus x, because remember we were minusing it off y, but then I've got a minus of a minus, that turns into a positive. All right, so this is our one equation, one unknown. Let's simplify there. We see that boils down to 2x equals 20. That means x equals 10. And y then equals 210. 210. And would the guard be hired? Yeah. Well, in the rational model, the guard would be hired. Notice that 10 is less than Phil's valuation of 100. 220 is less than Lisa's valuation of 300. We check they each get $90 worth of surplus, so we didn't make an algebraic error. 100 minus 10 is 90. 300 minus 210 is 90. So guard gets hired. And notice what we're assuming that Lisa's fine with paying extra because her benefits are greater than the cost. We're not imagining a situation that might exist in the real world, although rich people benefit from these types of public goods being provided. They wouldn't be provided under a poll tax. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about the way, the reason for progressive tax systems. But anyway, we're ignoring the question of whether Lisa feels like this is an unfair arrangement and she's not for it. Instead, we're using the rational principle, do action X or support policy X if the benefits of policy X are greater than the costs of policy X. And under that criterion, Lisa and Phil both support the plan, and the guard gets hired. Now, part D is the real hang-up to this methodology. Part D and assume that we knew each person's valuation, and the problem in the real world is we don't. And we don't know valuations. And people lie when we ask. And I illustrated this in class, but again, when you know your payment share is going to be tied to your answer, there's a tendency to lowball. And then if your payment share is not tied with your answer and you really support a project, you're going to have an incentive to really exaggerate your benefits. So asking people their valuations isn't very effective. And we often use income or wealth, income taxes or property taxes. We often use income or wealth as a proxy for willingness to pay. And that's not too bad as things go. Rich people generally can and are willing to spend a lot more on things from, whether it be a restaurant meal at a nice place to, building that bridge to their gated community. Rich people can and do and are willing to pay more generally for things than poor people.